que sabe, la que sabe, la que sabe, la curandera, la que canta sobre los huesos. Mira, los huesos. Es la vieja. Se llama la huesera. Mira, mírala. Cuidado.
Hello, this is Ness Bosch, and you're listening to the Path of the Bones podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode number 5. And today I have the pleasure to introduce you to a friend of mine, Roberto. Don Roberto. Hi, Robert.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm going to read a short bio so everyone gets to know Robert. I met Robert quite a few years ago now in Granada when I was still living there, and we have shared teachings and also we have worked together in retreats. So it's really nice to have you here today, and let's get you to know Robert. So Don Roberto is a medical anthropologist and shamanic facilitator. In 2008, his research interest changed when he encountered the tradition of Amazonian shamanism in the form of plant spirit teachers, a form of healing unknown to him at the time. He began to research this tradition with great intensity, studying the mestizo tradition of Don Solontello via Maria Cristina Mendoza, as well as studying the Shipibo tribal tradition with Doña Erlinda Agustin in Pucallpa, Peru. His studies continue, and he trained in the Amazon with the Ayahuasca Foundation and Don Enrique Lopez in Iquitos, Peru, deepening his knowledge in Shipibo tradition. In 2013, he extended his shamanic studies with Master Shaman Don Antonio Vasquez, and in 2015 completed a 3-month intensive training with node healers Herbert Quinteros, Metza Oca, Don Walter Martinez, and Don Diomar Lopez Silvano. He has also undertaken training in core shamanism, drum-based shamanism with Howard Sharing, and has been in advanced training with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, focusing on negative energy extraction, soul retrieval, and shamanic dream work, as well as with Ness Bosch, me, learning even more advanced shamanic protocols. So thank you very much for taking my invitation. I wanted to invite Robert because I wanted to talk about plant spirit medicine, because obviously it's a very important part of your work, and it has also been part of my journey as well as a shamaness. So I want to ask you, as someone that has that is working deeply with spirit play, what do you think that appeals to people? Because it's not just a small group of people that work with plants. It's a lot of people that every year work with spirit plants, and I see more and more people seeking plants for healing.
It's twofold, isn't it? People who are out there in the field saying that they're working with plant teachers, and those people who are looking for this kind of healing that can come from working with plant teachers. That's right. I think there's a real desire to know directly kind of desire for gnosis, a desire to know through experience, not through necessarily text-based information and transmission, but to know for oneself. And so there's that desire for direct experience. And secondly, there's a desire to experience different modes of healing. So we're very used to pharmaceuticals or talking therapies, but sometimes people are looking for engagement with more intractable issues that really are very difficult to talk about and very difficult to isolate or identify even. And that's where the plant spirits come into their own, because they're able to see across time and space and beyond the 3D, and to be able to identify the imprints, the kind of belief systems that are holding people back or limiting them in their growth patterns. And so that perspective is it transcends a simple human perspective, and that means that they can actually sometimes obtain results that are much faster and much more profound and much more systemic than a general one-to-one personal communication. The kind of level of knowledge transcends most therapists or most doctors, because it doesn't just include the human perspective. It includes something much, much wider, and something that's gained through millions and millions of years of engagement with the environment and terraforming the planet. So there's a level of wisdom about the world that is actually very, very profound. And I think that, in a nutshell, is probably why people are looking for something beyond the ordinary. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally does. I approached plant medicine. I was looking for part of what you said. I didn't want the filter. I didn't want the human filter. I wanted something to help me amplify my connection and give me a different perspective. Plant teachers give you their vision. They open a new channel completely.
They invite you to experience the world from their perspective, in a sense.
Yes.
Or from their perspective of wisdom. And
yes.
It's a very, I remember being in the Amazon, and as you go deeper into the experience in terms of training, then the more commitment, more time you spend with the plant in terms of the plant you're studying or in apprenticing to, the more it actually can open its world to you. And I remember being at a certain stage, maybe month 3 or 4 of my engagement with Bob Insana, which is a very powerful plant spirit teacher there, and suddenly it revealed its world to me, and I was astonished. There were waterfalls and mountains and rivers, and there was a whole contained universe in its world. So then I realized, I was like, oh my goodness. So it makes sense if you think about it. They are operating on a different frequency in a different realm, in different dimensions even.
Yeah.
And in those dimensions, they have infinite space.
Yes.
They can create their own realities, their own worlds.
Yeah.
And so they're not limited to 3D capacity. It's almost like, what's that game that people play? Kids are often playing, they're building worlds within worlds. And so they're in cyberspace. And so there's no physical limits to what they can do. And so in a sense, that's what the plants are doing. They actually are able to create their own universes and worlds and dimensions. And you suddenly have access to that. It's like, oh my goodness, this is their territory.
How did you encounter plant medicine?
Unintentional. It wasn't something that I'd planned on. However, what happened, well, of course, like many young people, I'd experienced some kind of plant substances when I was younger, but I hadn't really appreciated the power of them and their magnificence to the extent that I did when I was older. So, in fact, at the time, I was actually deeply involved in teaching languages, and also photography was my main passion. So I wasn't really looking for anything. It was unintentional, and I wasn't really looking for the shamanic path or plant spirit medicine. But what had happened is that ever since I was a young man, I tried it, and it was more in the element of fun back in the day. And then many years passed, and many lifetimes passed in terms of what I was doing. And then I realized that actually, I was wondering what I was doing in my life, actually, because I'd been trained as a linguist, as a language teacher, as an anthropologist, but I found myself in Asia, in Taiwan, teaching kids. and there was nothing wrong with that, but I was just saying to myself, hang on, I've got a master's, what am I doing in this country, whatnot. And then, interestingly enough, somebody reached out in Facebook and asked to be my friend. And I was wondering, who are you? And they happened to live in a city near me. And I wrote back to them, and I didn't write back. I looked at their interests, because back in the day, Facebook really was a social network. If you wanted to meet somebody who was interested in line dancing for dwarfs, you could find that. So they said shamanism and ayahuasca. and something in my brain went, I know what ayahuasca is. It's something from Peru, but it's a real thing. It's a really powerful and a legitimate substance that really has amazing properties. So I wrote back to them and said, well, how can you be, you're living in Taiwan, in Asia, well, how can you be interested in ayahuasca? And they said, we have similar plants that can do the same thing. And I was like, wow. So at the same time, I had a lunch date with somebody else, and they were actually doing a PhD in business studies, so very unrelated to anything esoteric or plant spirit based. But and so we had a chat, and at the end of the lunch, he said, "Hang on, don't go. I've got something for you." And he reached down under the table, pulled out this jar of liquid, put it on the table. And I looked at it. It was brown liquid. And I said, "I don't drink coffee." He goes, "No, no, no, it's not coffee. It's ayahuasca." So it's the same. It's two different guys the same week mentioning ayahuasca, and I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute. When these signs come in, you've got to pay attention to it." So the first guy wrote back to me and said, "Look, in about 6 weeks, it's going to be Chinese New Year. We're going to have time. We're going to have a holiday. Would you like to do a ceremony with the ayahuasca?" And I was like, "That's the calling." So I waited for the 6 weeks. I prepared. I fasted, etc., etc. And the day came. And I went to the place. It was a daytime thing. There was a house by the sea, and basically, these guys had just brewed the concoction, and they just said, "Good luck, thank you, good luck, and here we go." So I drank so what happened is that the second guy, he gave me the ayahuasca, but I didn't dare touch it. I just said, it's not right for me to do it this time. I can't just be given it and have no context. I need to do it properly. So I prepared, etc. So in that day, so we drank about midday, and about 20 minutes later, I'm going, "Oh, this was not maybe the best idea," because I started to feel sick. Right, so I rushed out into the garden and I purged in the flower bed. So I purged, and then it's full daylight, and I look across, and there's a guy maybe about 10 meters away, and a real living guy, and he's smiling at me, but his head is on fire. And I'm like, "Oh, this is really seriously strong," and it was so strong that I could barely stand up. I was like, "Oh," and then I saw that in the garden they put out tents, right? So I went, that's a very good idea. So I went into the tent, took my glasses off, and I shut my eyes, and then boom, this whole visual field in front of me, well, not just in front of me, because if you do something like mushrooms or you do other things, you get the visual field in front of you. But this field was behind me, above me, below me, around me. It was 360, like a ball. And I was like, "Oh, this is so on another level," right? And so what then happened was, the visions were really intense, really furiously intense. And then they died down to nothingness, just complete darkness with my eyes closed. And so I'm there, and I'm actually checking in with myself, and I think to myself, hang on a minute, there's something else within me. There's a presence there, a presence that is so intelligent that I am no longer the most intelligent person in this body. There is something way, 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 way more intelligent than me in my body. And that led me to an understanding. I just went, hang on, I just had an epiphany. What I just drank was not a liquid, was not a drug, was not a chemical, but a living spirit, because it had presence, right? And we just went, "Oh, this is and I just said to myself, this is so not recreational." And at the same time, the energy coursing through my body was on a whole different level. It was like even the insides of my teeth, I could feel them, and they were happy, they were joyous, they were singing. It's like, this is not your usual experience. And so in the darkness, I'm with my eyes closed in the darkness, feeling this presence, and I felt myself being scanned. Like whoever this was, whatever this was in my body was looking, and like, "Who are you, carbon unit?" Right? And then this voice telepathically came to me. "Okay, so let me show you what happens after you die," right? And I was completely committed. I said, "Look, back when I agreed to do this and saw the signs, I said, if I'm being called, I'm going to go for it, because this is the path of the warrior. You're going to go for it, and you experience whatever it takes." So when it said, "Let me show you what happens after you die," I was like completely calm. I was like, let's do it. If I have to die in this process, so be it. So what then was shown to me was basically infinity, right? What happens when we leave our body? We're no longer contained. We're no longer constrained by 3D. We're pure consciousness. And so I was witnessing this thing. The first thing I said to myself is like, oh my, the Tibetans really know what they're talking about, because they know what lies beyond the process of life, right? They've been there in the meditations and all that, and they write about it very beautifully. And there I was actually seeing this. And what was funny is that I felt within myself, hang on a minute, I know this. I've seen this before. I know this. And if I know this, I've been here before. I have died and seen this landscape or this energetic form. And so it's familiar to me. And if it's familiar to me and I've died before, we're just on one more round of this cycle. There's nothing to be afraid of, essentially, because we physically dissolve, but our consciousness is eternal. And then, so that was quite amazing. I mean, on a scale I've never experienced before. But at the same time, the energy still flowing through me was really allowing me to experience what the divine was, what transcendent was, what, you know, it wasn't just words, it was an actual level of knowing. And I just went to myself, oh, this is what I've been looking for all my life. I've been searching, I've been traveling and reading and looking and searching. And here it is.
How old were you when you had that experience?
I was 42.
42. Okay.
And I said to myself, this is what I've been looking for. I couldn't articulate, because unless you know what it is by feeling, you can't put it into words. But there it was. I was going, oh, the sacred really is a thing. It's not just a concept. It's not just words. It really is a level of being and awareness.
Yeah.
And actually that encounter with that intelligence and that energy, I said to myself, I know nothing.
No.
Even with my academic background in all those kind of whatever, I still know nothing. Compared to what that level I was experiencing within my body, I just went, we got to start again.
Yeah.
Start again like a beginner.
You had such a different experience from mine, from my first time with ayahuasca in my 20s. My experience was like, you say you were purging, you know, that happens with the aya, with the abuela, you know, you purge. But I remember I had such a tremendous, it was a huge shadow work session. Like, it was so hardcore. I remember literally purging like all sorts of shadows coming from the inside, you know, a lot of pain and things like that. And I remember I was literally vomiting scorpions and scalopendras or everything dark. Like, it was like amazing. And then when I finished purging, I remember my body just floated in the air, and suddenly all the meat I have in my body kind of explode.
Wow.
And everything that was left was my skeleton floating in the air. Okay?
So, which is a classic shamanic experience, the dismemberment. Is a pure...
That was literally my first experience with Aya. Literally, the meat explode from my body. And it was just like my skeleton floating in the air. And then when I was there as a skeleton, I saw I saw my great grandmother that I think Aya kind of came through my great grandmother. I could see her as my great grandmother at the bottom of my feet. And she just smiled, and suddenly these golden armors, suit of armors, like Japanese samurai armors, like golden, start coming down and, you know, just coming through my bones. That was like my very first experience with Aya in my 20s.
Wow. And the funny thing is I was taken on a journey through the universe. I was really shown. And I came out of that experience going, well, first of all, you know, this is what I've been looking for. Secondly, I know nothing. Thirdly, how deep does this go? And I spoke to people later on. I came out and I said, well, how was your experience? They said, oh, it was mild. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is the most profound experience that I've ever had, like a bit like your dismemberment.
Yeah, I remember the people that it was a private ceremony. We were only 3 people in there. And the people that came to the ceremony with me, when I finally left the journey and I managed to come back, they were like sitting in a corner of the room as like chickens, so scared because everything that was going on with me.
It was so profound. They felt it, yeah.
And I was not new to plant spirits because I'm a mushroom woman. That's my main medicine. I have this relationship with mushrooms since I was little. You know, I used to go to the forest with my dad, like picking up wild mushrooms. He would tell me about which mushrooms not to take and that. And I grew up in the forest picking up mushrooms, going by myself, getting, the mushrooms that way.
Mhm.
And then in my late teenage years and early 20s, I was working with mushroom medicine, in ceremonial ways. So I was not new to plant medicine, but I have to say that first encounter with ayahuasca changed everything.
It definitely is a threshold experience.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, I don't know if you found this yourself, but if I work with mushrooms now, it takes me to the same portals. It takes me to the same dimensions as I am. It's almost like the mushrooms are cooperating, saying, "Oh, you know how to go here? Okay, we'll take you there,
But
to that domain."
to me, it's funny because a lot of people kind of underestimate mushroom medicine because they're there and they're everywhere. But because they're everywhere, for me, they are the most universal medicine that we can take. Like, obviously, we can access ayahuasca. People bring the medicine from different countries, but mushrooms are everywhere. So I do believe mushroom medicine belong to everyone in that sense. And people say, "Oh, you should work with your local medicines, not take medicines from other places."
Well, that's a perfect vehicle. If it's everywhere, then that is your local medicine.
But some people think that because there are things like ayahuasca or like peyote that are like stronger or whatever, they tend to underestimate the medicine of the mushroom because it's more humble, if you know what I mean, and it's everywhere.
I never, even though it's ubiquitous, I've never underestimated mushrooms, especially not golden teachers, because they are special in their own right.
Yeah.
And no, I think it's a mistaken thing to think, oh, these are just,
it's just mushrooms. Yeah.
No, you're not respecting them.
Yeah.
And they can give you, the smallest dose can give you, it can take you where it wants to take you. If it doesn't want to give you, if it doesn't want to give you the experience, it won't.
But that happens with every plant. I had such an amazing healing experience with mushrooms, and also as facilitator, for people, like equal to ayahuasca, perhaps, on the way they work, because the more you work with them, the more they open their universe to you or to the people you work with. And for me, they're just as powerful as ayahuasca. Exactly.
So can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah, sure.
So I was plateauing a little bit because, often when we're working with these medicines, if we work with somebody who's at a higher level, they can bring that power of the medicine to us. Yeah. But if you're working for yourself, you're going to find there's going to be some limitations to what you can work with and how deep you go. It's just the nature of the thing. So I was getting frustrated because I really wanted to do some very specific personal private work. And I actually journeyed to the spirit of the mushroom, to golden teacher mushroom, and I asked as a supplicant, I said, can you really help me? I need to purge some things, and can I have your blessing to do that, rather than just taking the mushroom straight without any communication. So I actually went to appeal and ask and for that healing. And when I took the golden teachers, within 30 seconds, I was purging and purging and purging. Yes, it really worked. But I went directly, I journeyed shamanically to speak to the spirit of the mushroom, to have that kind of covenant and agreement. And it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
So they can do the work that you're ready for. I purge with
mushrooms too.
Say again?
I purge with mushrooms too. Yeah. If there's something I need to purge, the mushrooms will help me, and I will purge it. And the same way, like, I have this issue with cacao, because a lot of people is doing cacao ceremonies, but if you work with cacao just as the same way you will work with ayahuasca, or you will work with San Pedro when you're brewing, or if you do the ritual, you do the ceremony properly and everything, I believe that any plant can actually provide you with deep medicine and a
If you have the
journey.
connection.
Yeah.
And
And for me, cacao is the same thing.
but for some people, that's the problem. They just think, oh, this is trendy. I can make a cacao drink, and let's just sing a song or whatever. I mean, play guitar, sing a song, dance.
Yeah.
But they don't have the connection to the plant.
No.
You know, and they think that it's going to be like a drug, but it isn't. So let me tell you another quick story. I came across cacao about 6 years ago. It started to appear on my radar, like boom, boom, cacao, cacao, cacao. And I was like, well, what's going on with cacao? And I was actually in France at Christmas time in Toulouse, and there was a Christmas market, a French Christmas market, and there was a chocolatier with his table and his chocolates, and there was a a bowl of liquid chocolate, and I said to him, is this kind of cacao? And he goes, yes. And I said, is it some ceremonial standard cacao? And he said, yes. And I said, well, how much should I take for a ceremonial dosage? And he said, 3 shots. So I said, give me those 3 shots. And then I took it and I just went, oh, so this is what they're talking about, because I felt my consciousness shift, and it was actually very, very beautiful afternoon at the market with the people playing music and the whole thing. So, and I realized then that I need to connect with this medicine. So, because I come from the Ayahuasca tradition, because I work with plants in a ceremonial fashion, I work with cacao exactly the same way. There's the same kind of connection and invocation, etc., etc. So there was one lady I worked with, and we did a cacao ceremony. There isn't any of this dancing stuff. It's very much kind of going inward, connecting, etc., etc. So a day later, she calls me up and she goes, "Is this normal?" I said, "What?" She goes, "Well, afterwards, I've been having constant orgasms, and that went on for 3 days." And I said, "I'll have whatever you drink," basically. And so, essentially, what was happening was her Kundalini was being activated. That's what the experience was. And that's why all this sexual energy was coming out. And that wasn't the intention. But sometimes when we hold space, we allow the plant to do what it needs to do with that particular person, right? That's exactly what happens. I mean, I've never heard of that before. And I've seen people doing rapé.
Yeah.
Going through some very profound processes, which is, again, if anybody doesn't know out there what rapé is, it's basically... It's a tobacco-infused plant medicine that has plants, specific healing plants that have been sung to and are curated, and each tribe has its own blend, and each tribe has its own makers. So it's very specific, and it's been very popular within the Ayahuasca community. People are blowing things up their nose all the time, and yet what they're not getting is that it is a medicine. It is not a substitute drug. So they tend to treat it like that. And so this one person, he went through this really, after we finished ceremony, he took a little, I gave him some rapé, and he went into a Kundalini experience. That's how powerful it is. And so personally, I do like rapé, but I do it rarely because it is a medicine, and I'm not going to do it just because 3 times a day, 3 times a day, because you become inured to it. You don't get what it's about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day is, not everyone has to do every single plant. No, plants are not there for everyone. And I think at the end of the day is about your experience and your connection and where the plants take you. And
that's the thing, in the Amazon or in Sacred Valley in Peru, you'll get all these people offering you like a smorgasbord of experiences. You want to do cacao and rapé and cambo and ayahuasca and bufo, and it's like a menu, and it's like, and San Pedro, and it's like, well, hang on a second, it's taken me all these years just to get a foothold as a journeyman with ayahuasca. I wouldn't say I'm a master. No, there's many, many years to go. But it's one specific plant that I'm getting a deep relationship. How can you possibly... It's like if you went to a restaurant and they say, we specialize in Chinese food, Korean food, Japanese food, and Indian food. You go, I think I'm not going to eat here because I don't think you know what you're doing.
I don't think medicine plant is like this huge world buffet that you can just go and take everything that you fancy. I think we share the same in the sense, like the plant found you when you had to find her.
We've got such a consumerist attitude to things. We just want to have, pick and choose and cherry pick and like a spiritual materialism, essentially, without realizing there's a whole lineage behind things, there's a whole energy, there's a whole kind of connection.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like for me, mushrooms have been part of my life all my life. Mushrooms, I used to go with my dad. I used to go with my great grandmother to pick up mushrooms and in the wild. And then ayahuasca came when it was the right time for ayahuasca to come. Then I also worked with San Pedro in ceremonies. I worked with peyote as well. Like, peyote is one plant I don't think I'm going back to.
You will go back to?
No, I won't.
Oh, you won't go back?
No,
Okay,
no, I won't do peyote again. Very much.
Well, I
as
work
much
with
as,
iboga.
No, I've never worked with iboga, but
I've worked with iboga.
peyote. The peyote I had was a peyote that someone I knew grew up himself. He got the small peyotes and he grew the peyotes himself. But I do have this issue, knowing how people goes to Mexico peyote hunting, and they're not very respectful to the land. And so even I had peyote that was kind of grew up in Spain by a friend, and he looked after these plants for many years, and all that. It was very different. But I don't think I will go back to peyote. And to be honest, at one point, after doing ayahuasca for quite several years, I got to a point that the plant said to me, I don't want to see you. I think we're done, And I remember that last meeting with the spirit, and I was like, "Are you sure? Is this me?" And I remember, and even the plant during that experience said, "You don't need to really drink that much. I'm already within yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't really need to drink." And I remember when they offered me a glass, the plant told me, "No, just," I dip my fingers and I put my fingers in my third eye, in my heart. I kind of put the plant in some points of my body, and I journey and I didn't have to drink it on my last journey with Aya. I didn't even have to drink it.
I'll just share something with you. So I work with tobacco, which is a beautiful plant spirit teachers.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, there were certain people that really didn't want to receive the tobacco smoke. And I said, no problem. So I still sang to the tobacco, and then I put it in my mouth, and I took an inhale of unlit tobacco. So it's just the energy. And they still have the powerful effect because it's the energy. It's not necessarily that it's lit.
Yeah.
It's the energy and the awakening. So that's quite amazing.
Yeah, but that was my last experience with ayahuasca. And on that time, she just said, "You don't even need to drink me anymore. I'm inside of you." And literally just put dip my fingers and put, the brew in my body. And I just journeyed like never before. And
some people say to me, "How often should we do this?" And I say, well, there's no have tos.
No.
If you come and there's one guy that came in when I was in Asia, and we were at a beautiful site with a waterfall, and then suddenly he gets up and he said, "It's all about love. It's all about love." About an hour, it's all about love. And then we never saw him again. And he never needed to do it again because he got the essence of it, you see. But having said that, I was in Costa Rica 3 years after encountering the medicine, doing deep work, and I was purging and purging and purging. And I said, "Why? I've been doing this for 3 years. Why do I still need to purge?" And she goes, "Child, do you think that your soul is the same size as your body? There is still work to be done." So I was like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everybody, there's no have tos, and it's really a personal thing. Some people say, "I'm not doing it again." And then 6 months later they go, "Oh, she spoke to me. She's calling me. I need to go back." I said, "Well, that's fine." Yeah. So there's no pressure.
No, it's no pressure. And I remember that last ceremony with her. And since that time, I have continued working with my mushrooms, because that's my medicine. And
for sure.
when I need to purge, I purge because the mushrooms help me to do so. The spirit of San Pedro kind of said, "Now you can share me as well." He kind of gave me permission to kind of share him with other people, because until I don't get permission from the plant to share, I don't share with other people.
I hear you. Yeah. Why? Because you're not connected. You don't have exactly the permission from the plant to.
Yeah. But even so, I got the permission, and I kind of continue working with my mushrooms, because that's been my family medicine. I didn't have that urge to go back to Aya, because for me and for her, we're done in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's all about getting to that point where you are really connected to the plant, isn't it? That you can really hear the plant and listen to the plant and then just follow.
I'd just like to talk a little bit, not just necessarily about the more psychoactive plant spirit teachers like mushrooms or ayahuasca, but also about one of the most important parts of the Amazonian training tradition, which is dieta. Mm-hmm. So dieta means it's a connection. It's a spiritual process of stripping away everything that's not needed, and distraction, and spending quality time with a specific plant. No, we're not even talking about ayahuasca. We're talking about the allies. So, for example, rose would be one, or oak would be one, or eucalyptus, or you know, there are all these plants in the Amazon that they don't put on a big show, but if you work with them and you begin to connect with the energy, establish the energy in your body, and grow with them through time, then they become part of you. And that becomes part of your medicine. Mm-hmm. So that ayahuasca is a great facilitator for the experience, but the fine tuning, if you like, the downloads, the energetic, what's the word, gifts in a sense, or knowledge or technologies also come from other plants. Yeah. And so you can even do dieta. You can open the dieta and get the connection and the agreement. You don't have to drink ayahuasca at all. It can be a very powerful catalyst for really making things happen and faster. But essentially, dieta is an agreement with the plant spirit teacher, and your payment is your sacrifice. Yeah, your payment is to do without all the material things that you're used to, and that because they can't take money, of course, but there needs to be some energetic reciprocity that your effort is being recognized. Yeah. And so the trials and tribulations you go through with those plants are really, they're shifting your energy and your frequency, so that actually now if I sing, it's not just me, my ego, my personality, but it's the frequency of those plants that are within me that have created a home within me. That so when I sing, that is the medicine that starts to work on people. Not just the ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a great gift and a great facilitator, but the real fine tuning for the healing comes from those plant spirits. And so what I'm trying to say is that it's not necessarily to have psychoactive experiences. You can also do work with the plant spirits. Let's say you're called to do the rose. Well, it's a simple process in a sense of really making a connection and holding that space of dieta or sacrifice, if you like, or dietary requirements, and then seeing it to the end. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, whatever, and then allowing that energy to incorporate itself in your body. Yeah.
One of the things I share with people that trains with me, because I want them to actually experience what you say, like that connection with plants in general, not just psychoactive plants.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I teach them to hold a ceremony that they can use to connect with every single plant, to connect with their spirits. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the homework they need to do. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, it's not about fireworks working with ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever. You know, you need to learn how to build up this connection with every plant around you.
I love that. I'm just going to add, I mean, people are sold on the idea of the fireworks, right? The big show.
Yeah.
However, when we're training in the jungle, sometimes there can be 4 ceremonies where we drink ayahuasca, but we're dieting with maybe say rose or whatever, and nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. Like no show, no visuals, no nothing. And then it really teaches one patience, because it's plant spirit time. It's not human time. It's plant time. And they're doing things in the background, under the hood, which you have no idea of. But maybe the 5th session, then it all happens. Then it's like, oh, we've been working on this, and we now need to take that out because that's not good. And this, and so,
Yeah. I also interviewed a plant woman. Her name is Amy Blackthorne. I don't know. She's an author. She writes about plant spirits, and she has some really, really good books. And it was so moving talking to her, the way she has developed this connection, and she's able to read the messages from the different plants around her. Like if something suddenly grows in her garden, she is giving her a message. I have met very few people with that awareness, with that connection to the plant world. And I was listening to her and I was mesmerized, just listening to the way she interprets the messages of the plants around her. So if you don't know her work, you should look for some of her books.
La que sabe, la que sabe, la que sabe, la curandera, la que canta sobre los huesos. Mira, los huesos. Es la vieja. Se llama la huesera. Mira, mírala. Cuidado.
My ceremonies are 3 evenings worth of ceremonies, and I said, look, this is how this works. The first ceremony is about the handshake. It's not about the big show. It's about the medicine getting to know who you are, you getting to know the medicine. You may even think that it's not working because it's subtle. And the second one is deepening, and it's now saying, okay, now we're going to roll our sleeves up and we're going to go in and do the work, and people start doing work. And the third evening is resolution. Really, all those threads that have been opened, really go to the essence of the problem and really get some healing. And so the tough thing is for them to, I was in Portugal this year, and all those guys, they wanted to leave after the first ceremony. I said, I did tell you it's subtle. And I said, be patient. I said, oh, we can go back to Spain, right? This isn't working. I said, look, just stay one more day and then we'll do the second ceremony. And then they got their asses kicked from the second ceremony because he was like, oh, yeah, you know what you're doing. I said, well, not that I know what I'm doing. The plant knows what it's doing, right? So trust me, it likes his rhythm. It likes
but
three
you wouldn't have that problem if you spend some time previous ceremony to actually kick their asses with shadow work. You wouldn't have encountered that problem.
Possibly. Well, we'll talk about working together this year and combining it. Yes, yeah. I mean the work we have done.
Remember that shadow retreat we shared together in Spain.
It was powerful.
I mean, that was basically my job. You just wanted me there to start kicking asses before.
Yes, you're the ass kicker. You're the professional ass kicker. No, it was a really beautiful retreat. So we're going to be working again this year.
And the feedback was actually very, very good as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but that's the thing. People focus so much in plant work that they just become lazy and they just don't do any work. They just want to go to the plant for the plant to do all the work, when actually if you take responsibility, if you're really in a journey of growth and self-empowerment and cleansing your spirit and shadow work, like plain shadow work, just spirit work and working with your own shit, that's basic.
I like that because it is about taking the responsibility,
yeah,
and being proactive, rather than allowing this passively to happen. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and not everyone is ready to go dive in the deep end, which is why the ceremonies are often gentle to start with and then build up. Because there was one lady in Liverpool, she also thought it wasn't working right, but by the third ceremony, within 5 minutes of drinking, she's trying to swim across the floor. Is it working now? She goes, yeah. But she also told me if that had happened in the first ceremony, she would have run away. It was too much. but she became kind of more used to the presence.
No, it's very important to kind of, as you say, do the introductions. You know how the Aya said goodbye to me that time? I only had to literally just put the brew on my skin, in certain places in my body, and she took me where I had to go. I think people is just eager to drink it, to get their firework. But I think it's very important for people to, no, first you need to say hello, okay? It's like, that's basic.
Even with humans, you can't go right in there.
No.
Small talk.
It's too many people out there doing retreats where just give the medicine and people forget about the shadow work before you actually go to meet the plant.
That's true. And also not just that, the integration. That's very important.
Yeah. It is the work you do before you meet the plant and obviously integrating that. But integration is better if you have done the shadow work, Robert.
Agreed.
Because if you don't do the shadow work and you just take the plant and goodbye, you go to your house, the shit that's going to hit your face during that integration can literally finish you off. Yeah. Because you're not conscious of where is it coming from. You're not really conscious of what's happening because the plant is lifting layers, is moving things, but you're not conscious of where is all these coming from.
And also, sometimes post-ceremony, people actually run into a lot of turbulence from other people. You become the enemy. You become this horrible person. And it's like, whoa, what's happening? I thought I was going to be kind of perceived as better. I thought I was going to improve. And I said, look, that's a good sign. It means that your frequency is shifted and that's triggering their own shadow. Yeah. And so that's, if you can judge how much you've progressed by how much you are suddenly the bad guy, don't take it personally. It's actually just a reflection.
Yeah. No, that's true. Because once your vibration has changed, everyone around you is going to feel it. They don't know what's going on with you, but they're going to feel that change in vibration and they're going to react to that change. And so people has to, I think that's why it's super important to kind of say to people, this is not just coming, having the plan and going home. Okay. You need to expect different things. And when you put yourself in the hands of the plant, you need to accept whatever changes come from the work.
That comes with time, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a very difficult skill to acquire, or mindset if it's your first time. Yeah. I mean, I've been training for many years, and I'm much more open to whatever it is. There's no expectancy because I know it's doing its thing in its own time. It's always doing something, but I know it may not be in the kind of my human scale hurriedness that I want things to happen. So I just have to trust the process. Yeah. And ultimately, that's also something I think we need to encourage people to say human time is not plant time. Really, no. Definitely not. And also sequencing can be different. So we have to trust this. And so we're talking about preparing people. What I do is I often give them a briefing before they even do the medicine. And I say, look, where have the plants come from? How long have they been here? How have they transformed this planet? How do we depend on them for pretty much the food cycle and everything? So it's survival, medicines, the whole thing. And so then they begin to go, and I said, well, here's the other thing. Plants have been here for so long that they have reached a certain level of intelligence we cannot even imagine. Mm-hmm. And they are basically, they can help us to release the things that don't serve us, like the shadow stuff, yeah? And they can help us to remember who we are, because we also have codes and knowledge, and whether it's our lifetime or ancestral lifetimes, we have tremendous depth of knowledge. Yeah. And it's about the teaching element isn't so much teaching, it's about reminding us, because you'll have these experiences, you go, I know this already, but how come I can't access it? Or how come I don't know it subconsciously? So that's for me, that briefing is very important. And for a lot of people, because, I give them some very easy to follow navigational tips, because it's a different territory. Even if you've done, mushrooms, it's still a different territory. You need to work with the plant ally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
like for me, I see, it's like, I have my everyday mushrooms, right? These mushrooms I I cook with, these mushrooms I take for my health. They are reishi and they're good for the mind. They're just super. And they don't need to be psychoactive. Mushrooms are amazing in so many ways. And for me, mushrooms are just this amazing, not just the mycelium, this huge connection all over the planets, that we are connected by the mushrooms. But also this other stage, you know, when you go to work with the spirits in a different way, depending on the mushroom you're taking. But I embodied the medicine of mushroom being a little girl, and that's why after working with different plants, I remember that I actually remember the ceremony where the mushroom kind of said, "Are you finally coming back home?" Like,
wow,
it's me, you know, it's always been me. And I just cried. And I was like, it is you indeed, you know, it's like you are my medicine and you're home, because it's home for me. And I remember that ceremony in my 30s where the mushroom finally kind of said, "Are you coming back?" Like,
it's funny you should say that, because when I first did the medicine, it already felt familiar to me. It wasn't new. And so, yes, it was in one level, but on a deeper level, it was like, and then later on, I realized why, because it's part of our patrimony. Human beings have been working with plant spirit medicines for so long, and there've been many points of awakenings through the mushroom. So it's within our RNA and our DNA that this is familiar to us, you know, so that's the most important thing. It is part of our heritage.
yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you a funny story. So, you know, obviously my grandparents been living in the mountains in Granada. You know this, you know the forest in Spain, they can be like real wild, like really, really wild. And this particular area in Granada, not even the Romans dare to go in there, you know, in those forests. And my dad told me this story that when I was a baby, I used to cry a lot, and I was always crying baby. And my great grandma just went, "Oh, okay, that's it." And she said, "I'm coming back." And she went to the garden in the house, and my father followed her because he wanted to know what was she up to. And she went to the garden in the patio, and she had opium poppies in the patio. And she literally she had cuts in the stem of the flower.
Yeah.
And she literally just rubbed my dummy there quickly and went back inside and gave me the dummy with the opium. And my dad, I had no idea about that. And my dad said, "Oh, you hardcore." And I was like, "What?" And it's like, yeah, you know, your great grandma, she used to give you opium when you were a baby. I was like, "What?"
Whoa. That was definitely a patrimony for you then.
It was something that we'll use, you know, my granddad will use plants for their medicinal properties. And obviously the people in the mountains use plants. That's what they use.
And in the jungle, they don't have any doctors. They have just the plants.
Yeah, they have the plants.
Doctoring, yeah, exactly.
And that was my great grandma's way to get me to shut up because I was crying too much. She would just give me a little bit of opium, and
I wish I had a grandma like that.
That's why it's part of my heritage. You know, I come from a family of plant people, so obviously part of my work was going to be as a spirit woman, as a shamanist, was going to be working with plants. And
that's the funny thing, because, you know, as a London boy, you know, I'm kind of in a big city, I really didn't have that connection with nature. So I'm really quite amazed. And I could remember, you know, it's not like at school, they say, "What do you want to do?" "Oh, I want to be a shaman." No, I had no idea that this would be a path that I'd be taking. So I'm very grateful that I didn't know, in a sense, because part of the excitement, part of the beauty is not knowing and discovering step by step, right?
Well, you didn't know I was heading to this, but obviously I had no idea it was I've been walking an animistic path like forever. I only recognize this path as being a path when I enter the shamanic path, and then I went,
There you go.
but I've
Yeah.
been doing this all my life, or I've been doing this.
Same, but I didn't have the name for it or the
Yeah,
connection.
yeah,
But it's interesting that when people said, "Oh, it was very mild," I'm so grateful that it wasn't for me, because if it had just been the average, "Oh, that was interesting," I would never have gone further. But it was so powerful and so eye-opening, mind-opening. I just went, I need to know more. I need to go deep. And in going deep, I needed to train. And in going training, people come to me, So it was a very organic process of developing a skill set and learning about holding space and ceremony and people and all
yeah,
the things that are involved that led me to this point. And I'm very happy to do this as long as the energy is there, as long as I'm supported by the plants and not coming from ego, then I'll do this. But as soon as it's like, that's it, the energy's gone, it's time to do something different, I'll say, I've got to respect that and do something else.
yeah. No, I remember when the Aya said, like, this is you and me, because I am very grateful she did that, because that allowed me to concentrate in mushrooms again, to go back to mushrooms. And I think it's beautiful to kind of follow these plant spirits wherever they need to take you, with the intensity they need to take you. And it's just so much medicine out there, and they're such great helpers. But again, you do nothing if you don't do the inner work.
That's right. And again, there are people out there who are presenting themselves as facilitators, but don't actually do the work. This is why it's important to have a lineage, connection, wisdom keepers, trainings, so that you can actually be grounded in something, and so that the lineage can support you. Otherwise, here's the thing. One of the things I learned about the definition of a shaman is they never work alone. They always have allies. It's not a hero's quest. It's not like, look at me, the big honcho, it's never. It's about having a support, and it's having a community. And that's the most important thing, to have that connection. And there are people out there who are doing themselves a great deal of harm and doing other people a great deal of harm, because they simply do not have the knowledge base or the energetic connection that would give them the legitimacy and skill set to be able to handle this properly.
It has become like a buffet. Suddenly, as you said, people think that because they know how to brew the plant, they think they're shamans, or they think that they can share it with people, when actually it's not only dangerous, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way, because people, you can learn how to brew your plant, but if you don't have a ritual base, if you don't work with the spirits, if you are not able to connect with the spirits of the place you are, or create sacred space, and we know what sacred space is basically a safe space for you to work inside and to work with other people. If you don't have that base, then you're not doing your work okay, because you need to keep people safe, and you don't keep people safe if you don't know what you're doing.
Or if you haven't been there yourself. If you haven't been to those spaces, then you're really just a fraud. Because they need that support. I remember I was in Costa Rica, and I was with the Maria Cristina, and I was outside, and she was outside, and I kissed her hand with gratitude, and I said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And what I meant by that is, I know that she'd done the work, because she couldn't take us there if she hadn't. The medicine was so powerful. I just went, "Thank you, because you carry that energy. You are able to hold a space because you've done the work." And so that was my gratitude, because I saw it, it.
I was in Costa Rica in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the middle of the forest in the rainforest in Costa Rica in my 20s.
Wow. Yeah. That's one hell of a rainforest.
It was 21, probably. I was 21 years old when I was in Costa Rica. 21, 22, around that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, so what happens in a retreat? What happens in one of your retreats?
It's a very big question. There is no standard experience. Everybody's unique. Everybody has unique starting points. Everybody has unique journeys. And so, the actual Aya experience itself is very individual. Some people might be getting a lot of downloads or cleaning or visions or, some people might even be asleep because they need to rest. And that's what the medicine makes them do. It makes them sleep.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to say that this is standard procedure, but essentially what happens is that they get a chance to really connect with nature and to connect with themselves and to do a lot of releasing. So I explain to people, look, the work we're doing here is to let go of the stories that we don't need. Because we're essentially a collection of stories and narratives that we've told ourselves, narratives that the society has told us or a family, and they may be useful at a certain point in time because they help to define us. But as we grow, those stories can become anachronistic, out of time. They no longer serve where you are right now in your growth. And so helping once they defined who you were, they can suddenly start constraining you and making life very small, whereas you are this being that's growing and needs to be bigger. And so the thing about the medicine, it can see beyond time and space, and it can see what you need. And so it can see what you need for your highest potential. And so it can see what limits you from manifesting that highest potential. And so if it's a story or a trauma or whatever it is, it can work to unlock that, to release that, so you are no longer held captive or hostage by that story. And you can generate new narratives, new stories. So that is the general arc of what the purpose is. In terms of that's healing. Healing is to let go of that which does not serve you anymore. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. So imagine
the shape of that is very hard.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, I understand what you say, because, as you said, not every retreat is the same because the people is different. We all got different needs. The energy changes every single time, and I think it's basically, it's an offering. It's an offering. It's offering yourself to the plant. You are the offering. You need to become the offering humbly and kind of say, I'm here, just help me if you can, do whatever. And just imagine, for me, that first experience, that I was totally disintegrated, like, I went straight to my bones that very first time.
It doesn't surprise me. It's who you are, really. You cut to the quick. You don't mess about.
No. But it was like it was maybe I was my late 20s that time when I first started my journey with ayahuasca, and I continued my journey with ayahuasca through my 30s. Until she said, that's you and me done. And I did in between, I worked with some Pedro, and I work like with the peyote, and I think at the end of the day it's about kind of going blind and not expecting these fireworks, but is the attitude, is going with certain attitude.
And that's why it's good sometimes to say, okay, it's nice to have an intention, like I want this to happen. But I said, look, the thing is, you get what you need, not what you want. So you may have an idea of what you want, but that's from your ego. Whereas the plant sees the big picture and knows what you need for your ultimate growth. And that's why it gives you. Sometimes it can be very difficult, but it's really, there is no bad experience, because even though it's tough, it's not there to punish you. It's there to actually help show you. And here we come back to what you were saying, your shadow, because the shadow is often what is haunting you, or what is actually blinding you. So we need to. So I say the best thing, if you're seeing something that's not attractive or difficult or even frightening, it's not because it wants to frighten you or punish you. It's because it wants to show you, to open your eyes so you look at it straight in the face and you own it. It's the owning that is the freedom, is the liberation. So that's all, and that's the. So if you want to know, essentially, the ceremonies are quite, how to say, they're quite ordinary in a sense, because I make it ordinary. I don't want to focus on the magicality, which is there, the wondrousness, which is there, the transcendence, which is there, but I want to make it accessible and understandable and non-frightening, just like it's an ordinary thing. Come on, we're just going to commune with the plant spirit that's a lot older than you and a lot wiser than you, and stuff can happen in that space. And that, coming back to your sacred space thing, the sacred space has to be ritually created by the group so that we have the psychic space to go deep, to go deep and be held to go as deep as we need to go. That's the most important takeaway that I have about the work, that the sacred space is so critical for otherwise you have a drug, you don't have a medicine. You have
that's right.
an experience to get high rather than an experience to get
Yeah.
really deep into what you need to do. So
Yeah.
that sacred space is, something we both believe in very much.
Yeah. That's, you know me. That's why I put so much energy creating sacred space and making sure I anchor the energy and everything is anchored before I open more doors,
And the other thing I emphasize, I say to people, look, I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you for me to be your guru or your leader or your teacher or whatever. I want you to be critical and still maintain that sense of, skepticism until you experience what you need to experience. Because once you have that real connection to the plant, there is no more doubt because it's your experience, So I advocate an agnostic approach to the work, to allow people to experience this for themselves, to be open-minded as to the possibility that there are awarenesses within the plants, but to be more focused on their own experience. So then we can talk. Then after they've had these experiences, then we have a shared language, if you like, of experience.
One of the things from the retreat we shared together, for me, I think one of the good things about doing the shadow work beforehand is that it totally sets the intention for the rest of the work. And it opens up the right windows to where you need to go or where you need to work with the plant. Because sometimes if you haven't done the shadow work, you just go blind. Yeah, the plant is wise. The plant is going to go and go where it needs to go. But if you do shadow work beforehand and you open that door of consciousness and you do the shadow work, you are literally kind of doubling up your chances to get a really good healing session with the plant.
And you're also creating a secondary sacred space in terms of creating a container and context to do the work.
Yeah,
I agree with you. It was fun. It was profound, and we worked well as a team. I love that.
But I think that's what I like about the work, doing kind of everything in the right time. It gives a very good structure.
Yeah,
much better, in every sense, because then the after work, the aftercare is not as bad because you've been actually doing shadow work during the retreat. So it's a good thing to take a couple of days extra and just let you
what?
Just let me do my thing.
A tus órdenes, mi capitán.
I think people approach plant spirit too quickly at times. I
agree. I mean, we live in a very fast-paced world, and things are instantaneous.
Yeah.
And so it's actually a disengagement from your own internal processes that we've been entrained to be able to say, wait. You're on plant time now. I'm still training, and I'm still very patient to learn what I need to learn without any rush, because I know that if it's there for me to experience and to have access to, it'll emerge in its time. Does that make sense? But not, I want it now. That's never going to happen.
But I find, that's what I find. I find with people, they want things and they want them now. But they go to the plant without doing the homework. And it's like, and then they expect miracles. It's like that they expect the visions, they expect the answers, but you go to a class without doing your homework. And I see that.
The foundation, at least. Not even the homework, just foundation. Synchronization.
But, people expect to go from their office to the ceremony, like without even taking their tie off, if you know what I mean.
A guy who's actually applying to do a ceremony with me, and his idea of plant medicine is DMT. He's only had DMT and Bufo, and those are like cannonballs. And I'm like, I'm going to have to re-educate you. And he was saying, well, why is it 3-day ceremonies? I said, because that's the time frame that the plant likes. The first evening is like a handshake. It's like, who are you, human being?
Yeah.
Second evening is like, let's roll our sleeves up and do some work. And the third evening is resolution. it seems strange to some people, but that's exactly how the medicine says. I've got 3 days, and that's what we're going to do.
That's the very minimum.
Yeah, basically. And the funny thing is that some people, like the first evening, they're going, "It's not working." I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I mean, for me also, I'm also praying and trusting that it is working, because it can be quite disappointing when nothing seems to be happening on the first evening. And then I was in Portugal recently, and there were a bunch of guys, and they were almost ready to leave after the first evening. Say, "Oh, it's not working. Let's just go back to Spain or whatever." I said, "Just spend the integration day and then come back for the second ceremony." Oh my God. The second ceremony, they were getting their asses kicked, in the sense of like, "Oh my God, this is real," and they're really going deep, 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 deep. And the third evening was deep, 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 deep. And it's just like, and those people were ready to leave up to the first ceremony. Imagine if they had.
Yeah.
Imagine if they had. They missed out on
but that's what I mean. People want fast food spirituality. That's what they want. And especially as people that work in the shamanic, world, okay, we know that there is only so much we can do one session. And the same way people will look for a psychologist, or a psychiatric, is the continuous work, is the continuity of the work that allows you to connect and to find paths in your own mind and your soul to look for the medicine, right? The things that you need to heal. And you're saying those people were ready to leave on the first evening.
And I laugh because I can understand, because maybe they've done other substances that have been immediate, and that's why that's important with this guy. I'm going to have to say, look, it's not DMT. DMT is that businessman's high, 15 minutes, and they're there. But firstly, there's no plant spirit accompanying you in that, no guidance, no integration. It's just poof, there you are, and you have no control, and there's no intelligence behind the trajectory where you're going. Whereas I found that with every single experience, there's deep, deep intelligence. You may not know it in this first session, what happened, why it happened, but maybe like session 10, you go, "Oh, I get it. It has deep, deep logic. I couldn't see it because it's like information. If you only have one piece of information, you cannot see the pattern. But unless you have lots of data points, then you go, I see." And the plants have got trillions of data points, basically. If you like it.
Yeah. It's like a nautical chart, isn't it?
Nautical chart, yeah.
Yeah. So every session, every minute with the plant is like another point in your chart, another point in your chart. They built up the chart for you to actually find your way.
Yeah, then you can see the patterns yourself, and you start your own healing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very important to make a difference in between abusing substances or abusing plants in the way that you do it like recreational, you do it for fun or for the experience, or walking a path of healing, walking a path of respect, working with a plant.
I agree. I think for some people that is their initial exposure. That is recreational. I'll be honest with you. When I was like 19, mushrooms were my first experience of mushrooms. Were recreational, and we had a lot of fun, and we laughed and laughed and laughed. But as I got older, I wasn't actually. The funny thing is, I didn't actually return to plant spirit medicine, even though I didn't think of it in those terms until I was in my 40s. And then I had the experience that I had with ayahuasca, my first experience, that was really earth-shattering, and it really reformatted my entire perspective, and because the encounter with that intelligence was so humbling that it was a different ball game, and I realized, and as I went deeper into it, I said to myself, this is not it's not a sacrament for connection necessarily, in terms of the divine, but it is actually it's a medicine in its own right, and it's a profound wisdom in its own right. And therefore, if I'm going to extend my own experience and my own journeying with this in my own learning, and also to help other people, I better get my game right because this is serious. It's not, and that's what's really funny, that some people just go, "Oh, I know how to brew this, or I know how to make it. I can serve it," and it's like, no, I don't think you can, because you have no lineage, you have no foundation, you have no real understanding of what you're dealing with. You're dealing with very potentially dangerous territory, and potentially dangerous psychic territory, where people, unless they're held properly by someone who's been in these spaces, who's had these experiences, they can get lost and they can get traumatized. And so, well, the funny thing is, if you don't mind me just speaking out, the funny thing is, these facilitators also expose themselves to much danger, because they're picking up so much energy, so much psychic shit, that can actually turn against them and start making them sick. But they're often so driven by ego, like, oh, I can do this. You know those people, right? They're out there, and they're not connected to any lineage, any formal technology or understanding, or protocols, or benchmarks as to what constitutes good practice. And so they're actually accumulating a big. And I know people who've had serious issues with sickness and cancer, and not knowing what they've picked up, because they just still think, oh, it's something that I'm going through. But actually, I'll tell you this: when I have to go back to Peru every year to clean, because the stuff that I pick up is ghastly, it's horrible, and and towards the end of the year, I know I'm off my game a little bit. I know I'm energetically off my game, and here's the thing: those energetic packets are alive. They have awareness. And once they actually enter the body, they want to stay there. They do not want to go. And I have to fight, I have to fight tooth and nail to kick them out. And that's in the jungle. I know sometimes I have a session and I know I've cleansed something, but I know that something's still hanging in there that doesn't want to go. I can feel it. And I've talked to other shamans within the Peruvian tradition. They go, yeah, they do create little personalities for themselves and awarenesses, and they do want to stay at home. And you have to have the discipline to go through the cleansing every year. Otherwise, you're setting up yourself for a problem. So that's what I'm saying. People, the facilitators that are kind of ego driven, don't even know what they're storing up for themselves, because they're ignorant in the real sense. They just don't know. And so, that's why I recommend people really check out somebody who's gone through a training and knows a little bit more than just having gone through one session themselves. Just because you've taken a flight with EasyJet doesn't mean you can fly a 747.
This is something we can apply to not only shamanism, but to any energy work, any magical practice. It's like, if you're a practitioner, if you're a teacher, if you share with others, this hygiene.
It's energetic hygiene.
I mean, it's something you need to keep up with, because it is very easy, as you said, to pick up things from people where you're working, especially if you have like a very busy schedule and you're doing a lot of work and you deal with a lot of groups of people. And super, super important to keep cleansing yourself and doing your purifications, not only energy wise, but also put yourself in the mental space you need to be before you open the door again and say, okay, I'm ready to share again. You go to Peru because that's your tradition. Okay, you train with shamans in Peru, in the Amazons. Because I'm knowing you for some quite good number of years now, and I know that's what you do every year. You go to Peru, you do your dieta, and then you come back. You start with your cycle again. But I would like to point out that a lot of people look for plant spirits, but not every plant spirit is for everyone.
That's right.
And I've seen it over the years, everyone eager to go to Peru or work with ayahuasca, but the abuela is not for everyone. The same way San Pedro, San Pedro is, is different. More like the humble, loving granddad that can actually embrace a lot of people. That's the way I see San Pedro spirit. But for example, peyote is not. Peyote is
I haven't done peyote, so I've got no opinion, or I can't tell you.
But peyote is like the granddad that literally is waiting for you with its hand ready to slap you. He's not the loving granddad San Pedro is.
Yeah, I can agree with that. San Pedro is gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. To me, he is like a loving granddad. That's my experience with San Pedro, the grandmother, ayahuasca. I don't think she's for everyone because she's tough as well.
Yeah, she can be demanding. She can be tough. And she can deny you an experience if you go in with the wrong intention. I mean, I've had people that have come in and they really wanted to do the bucket list. They're like, I've done ayahuasca. And she just goes, goodbye.
Yeah. Because she is demanding and she can be hard as well.
I have also wanted to come up and they say, can I have another cup? And I look at them and go, do you really want another cup? Yes. And then cup after cup after cup. And nothing seems to happen until all of them come online and then they're in hell. You know, and because she's saying, "Oh, you wanted to abuse me? Let me show you your high. This is what you wanted, isn't it?" It's like, no, don't. Well, you asked for it, you drank it, you've taken so many cups. So, and I know, I mean, there's a difference between somebody being slightly indulgent and somebody being greedy. You know, and usually my rule is, I got one rule: if you can come to me, you can have you can have another cup. If you can't make it to me, like, go back. You don't need one. Yeah, it's she's very wise as to who gets what.
Yeah.
I have a friend from New York, and we were in nature in Asia, and it just started, and then we were journeying together, and it was deep, it was profound, and then he suddenly said, "Oh, I've been kicked out," and I said, "Why?" And he said, being a New Yorker, he said to the medicine, "Dazzle me, impress me," and she was like, "Bye bye."
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I was so deep, I was like, huh?
Yeah. That what happens when you look for plants from ego, I think. One of the hardest ego mirrors I have found in plant medicine is probably peyote.
It's peyote.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have mercy. Peyote doesn't have mercy when it comes to ego. And maybe after peyote, ayahuasca. So in my scale, probably peyote and then probably ayahuasca.
I'm intrigued. I think I'll need to commune with Senor Peyote at some point. It sounds interesting.
What I found with peyote is that is one of the best ego killers in that sense. It's like going into the hall of mirrors naked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you want to come for me? Let me show you. That was my experience with peyote. I've done more ayahuasca and I have done much more mushroom. The mushroom spirit is like, it's not what people expect. I don't know what they expect, but definitely you're not coming for the laugh if you're coming for me to work with mushrooms.
Not at all.
No. And you know my work. It has all to do with the way you approach the medicine, and obviously with the facilitator, the way you can create ritual, the way you can bring the spirits, and prepare the ritual space, and your ability to connect with worlds and the spirit of everything that you have in that circle. And
oh no, I mean, also, do you not find that different strains of mushrooms have different personalities and different effects? And so, golden teachers, my main experience has been with golden teachers, and they're not an easy ride. I mean, I was drawing on all my skill sets as an ayahuasquero to survive the golden teachers, because first of all, it's an 8-hour experience, and secondly, they made me sing for 6 or 7 hours nonstop. And I was like, please, make them.
Wow. Okay.
And they were tuning my body. And so there's sometimes when I'm actually in an ayahuasca ceremony that the energy of the mushrooms comes in, and they say, you need to sing to this person, because you're not just singing, you're singing across time and space. It's something that they're working with, and I'm just a vehicle. So, and no, I mean, it's been very difficult. And to be honest with you, I'm amazed. To be honest with you, I'm amazed at people that do ceremonies in groups. I mean, in terms of the mushrooms, because I'm so private with my mushroom experience. It is a different thing than doing ayahuasca in a group. I mean, I do that any day, ayahuasca groups, but the mushrooms is like, okay, it's you and me, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm so hypersensitive. I mean, I remember I was in a house in London and I was with the golden teachers. Somebody walked into the house And I was in my dark room and I felt them and I felt their stuff immediately. I was like, oh, and I came out of the room and I said, you are not doing your work. He said, what do you mean? I'm working on myself. No, you're not. You're not doing that work because I feel it. I'm not going to purge for you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, I'm not going to do that for you. And so don't lie to me. Don't bullshit me because I know. I just know, So that's why I don't like to do ceremonies, mushroom ceremonies with people because it's just too much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I find mushrooms much more private. They need like more privacy. But for me, any plant needs. I'm not a big fan of big groups working with plants because I think plant medicine should be like more petit comité, more individual because of the things that that can come out. But I agree with you, especially mushrooms. I think they are like you and I. We're gonna meet here.
You and me, baby.
Yeah, you and me, baby. I agree. I think I have done ceremonies maybe with 2 people apart from me that were connected somehow. But I don't tend to share mushrooms like in big groups unless I'm combining mushrooms with other medicine that actually allows the the openness of the circle.
And
but
it's interesting as well because even within the ayahuasca world, there are very different approaches to the size of groups.
Yeah.
So you have the the Kashinawa, who are also called the Huni Queen, and they come to Europe and they have like groups of 50, 60, up to 80 people in that space. And coming from my tradition, I'm like, wow, because they don't sing individually. So the Shipipo tradition is very, very different to other traditions in that they are very structured in what they do. Right, now we're going to make the connection. Now we're going to open you up on different levels. Now we're going to balance you on different levels. And okay, here we go. Now we're going to get to the meat of the subject. We're going to actually sing out the sickness that's within you, the darkness, the trauma, whatever it is. They'll directly address it. And those can take 20 minutes to half an hour per person. So they're very focused. And so that means there's actual limits on my actual time because I don't do 12-hour ceremonies. I do 4.5-hour ceremonies because that's the time that it takes to do the work. And so I can only work with so many people. So basically it's 5 people per evening. So my groups are maximum 15, which is actually doable because people are working while I'm not singing on them. So 5 people, everybody gets sung to individually. It's really perfect as opposed to 80 people, in a couple of nights of
I will never go to a group so big myself. I wouldn't.
I did to experience it, but then there were other issues, and I was just like, it's not my tradition, and it's just too impersonal. And there was no personal work, in fact. So it's more like a show.
Yeah,
it was basically a big spectacle. So I'm about the work really.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going because I really see that this isn't just new age wishful thinking, affirming things. It's like, oh, this is the real thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as you say, we don't need to know everything about the people coming. We just need to be from a conscious space, from a space of love as well, and open heart. Just try to do our best to bring the medicine for whoever is there and be present.
But we do need to have some certain protocols, like health protocols. So if somebody's on antidepressants, it could be absolutely fatal.
Yeah.
Or if they're expecting pregnant, we wouldn't give it to them. So there's certain things they have to clear those medical hurdles to be able to even participate. It's not just come on. It's
no.
Like
there is these questionnaires we always send to people like, be truthful in your answers because it's important for me to know. And otherwise, you're not coming,
And that's our due diligence. We need to do that.
Yeah.
To protect them and protect the group as well. So that everyone has a calm experience.
Yeah. No. You need to be responsible. You try to keep everyone in the group in a safe space, and
even afterwards, they need to be held as well. That's another thing to be aware of, guys. If you're thinking of doing medicine, just ask, where's that person from? What training do they have? What experience do they have? And how can you be held thereafter? because sometimes it's all very well to have these experiences that can be wondrous, can be transcendent, divine, amazing, all of those things, but it means nothing unless you can ground it in everyday life, unless you can ground it in terms of affecting change in your life, positive change, or implementing the lessons you received to be able to do that. Because there's no point in having this download of tremendous information that you do nothing with. You go, oh, that was interesting. So it's about first implementing the signals and change. So what happens after a few days, sometimes that information cascades through your system and you go, all right, I need to do this, or I need to do that. And so implementing those hints, those suggestions is really, because you don't need to change your life overnight to something tremendously different. It just needs to be small, gradual changes. Because a 1% change in your destination can actually take you to somewhere completely different. Just a tiny, because as it goes, it just gets larger and larger as you travel. So taking small steps is important. It's nothing grandiose, or it doesn't need to be like that. Eat more carrots.
Thank you for accepting my invitation and being here with me today, sharing. I look forward to co-creating new spaces for people to experience.
Let's manifest that in 2025. Beautiful. And thanks everyone for actually listening to this and taking this information on board. It's a really beautiful world we work with. Thank you.
So thank you. Speak soon.
Bye everyone. Ciao.
La que sabe, la que sabe, la que sabe, la curandera, la que canta sobre los huesos. Mira, los huesos. Es la vieja. Se llama la huesera. Mira, mírala.